They have the previous officer.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury panel. Welcome back to the 403rd District Court. If you would stand and raise your right hands, the clerk will administer the jury oath.
You and each of you do solemnly swear or affirm that you will true answers give in the cause now pending before this court, style D1 DC 12-201-718, the state of Texas versus Brandon Daniel. You will true answers. You will a true verdict render according to the law and evidence presented to you. So help you God.
You may be seated. State, you may begin with your reading of the indictment in this cause.
Cause D1 DC 12201-718, State of Texas versus Brandon Daniel. In the name and by the authority of the State of Texas, the grand jury for the County of Travis, State of Texas, duly selected, impaneled, sworn, charged, and organized as such at the January term AD 2012 of the 167th Judicial District Court for said county. Upon its oath, presents in and to said court at said term that Brandon Daniel, on or about the 6th day of April, AD 2012, and before the presentment of this indictment in the County of Travis and State of Texas, did then and there intentionally or knowingly cause the death of an individual, namely Jaime Padron, by shooting Jaime Padron with a firearm, and the said Jaime Padron was then and there a peace officer who was acting in the lawful discharge of official duty, namely responding to a 311 call for service, and the defendant knew Jaime Padron was a peace officer, against the peace and dignity of the state, signed by the foreperson of the grand jury.
To those allegations, how does the defendant plead?
We would ask the court to enter a plea of not guilty for Mr. Daniel.
You may be seated. Does the state have an opening statement to make?
Yes, Your Honor, may it please the court, counsel for the defense. Ladies and gentlemen, In this case, you will hear about the early morning hours of April 6, 2012. At a Walmart, Palmer and I-35, Brandon Daniel is wandering the aisles of that Walmart. He gathers the attention of loss prevention and the managers working that night, and they follow him through the store. Lincoln Lemir calls 311 and says, "We have an individual in the store who needs assistance." They indicate to him that an officer is en route. You'll hear from an officer who self-assigned himself to that call, who was the second to arrive at the scene. You'll hear that when he arrived, Jaime Padron was on the floor, dead. You'll hear from the people in the Walmart what they did, how they disarmed Mr. Daniel, how they restrained him. You'll hear from a myriad of police officers who arrived. You'll see a surveillance video from the Walmart showing you exactly what happened that morning. You'll see Brandon Daniel's behavior, what he's doing, how he's doing it. You'll see Padron's arrival, and you'll see what happened to Jaime Padron. You'll hear from the medical examiner who will tell you that from a contact wound, a shot to the neck, Jaime Padron was killed. You'll see an interview of Mr. Daniel conducted at the Austin Police Department, where he indicated to detectives, "I saw his face and I shot him. I knew he was a police officer." That's the evidence you'll hear in this case, ladies and gentlemen. And based on that, you will find Mr. Daniel guilty of this offense.
Defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I appreciate your all being here and agreeing to work with us on this case for the next week and a half, 2 weeks. It should be a very interesting case, and I think that this is the kind of case that raises a lot of questions in people's minds. We want to know what happened that night. But the question from the defense perspective that really drives the case is the question that I constantly come back to when thinking about this case. How could this have happened? What happened to Brandon to cause him to do this? Okay, how did this person go from where he was to where he wound up on April 6th of 2012? Where he was is that he seemed to be on top of the world. He was a 24-year-old computer software engineer designing next-generation graphical user interfaces. He graduated from Colorado State University with a computer science degree, did very well in college. Got this fantastic job after working with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, working on websites that the federal government uses to help farmers all around the country. He went from there to working for Hewlett Packard, doing the same kind of graphic design type work. Had a fantastic job. Was absolutely seemed to be on the top of the world, doing extremely well. Had a very promising future. So what happened to Brandon to cause him to go from there to where he wound up on April the 6th? The simple answer is he broke up with his girlfriend. When he broke up with his girlfriend, that led to terrible depression. This terrible depression then led to the use, self-medication we might say, of Xanax, which is an anti-anxiety medication. Xanax, as it turns out, is highly addictive, and it really can lead to personality changes. It leads to really changes not just personality, but perception, in recollection, in response to external events, in response to external threats. On this particular night, I think you're going to hear very clear evidence that Brandon was highly intoxicated, under the influence of Xanax. You're going to be able to watch the video of the crime scene. You're going to see him stumbling around the store, highly intoxicated. I don't anticipate you'll hear a single witness say they smelled any alcohol on him. And that's because he is tied up into Xanax so heavily that he's just sort of wandering around in a fog in the Walmart store. Now, am I trying to say that excuses his behavior? Certainly not. It doesn't excuse his behavior. But does it help explain his behavior? I think it does. Does it help explain his state of mind at the time? Does it help explain his strange reactions to inputs, to the threat, to what it was that was going on? Does it help explain his statements that he gave afterward? Because you're going to be able to listen to Brandon's statement that he gave to the police, a very long statement that he gave to the police, and you'll see that lots of things don't match up in the statement. He was in an extremely confused, disordered state of mind as a result of the Xanax, and it helps us answer that original question What happened to Brandon? How did he go from that guy on top of the world to the guy on April the 6th who did a terrible thing? So what does he do on April the 6th? I think you're going to hear evidence that he went to Walmart either to shop or to shoplift. But again, this is one of those jumbled up things in his mind that doesn't make great sense. You'll be able to see that he gives multiple accounts of what did you plan on doing that night. He hasn't yet shoplifted. He hasn't yet left the store when he gets confronted by Officer Padron, and he tries to run away from Officer Padron. He doesn't stand and fight. He tries to run away from Officer Padron. That's going to be clear on the video. What is his intention? You're going to hear, my intention is to get away. My intention was never to shoot anybody. You'll hear Brandon say that several times on his statement. Let's talk a little bit about Xanax, because I think you're going to hear evidence about this. Xanax has lots of effects on both the mind and on the body. It lessens a person's anxiety and what they perceive as anxiety. And then when you talk to the person, they act strange. They may act like they have sort of a flat affect. In other words, not showing an awful lot of emotion. It also causes terrible memory problems. This kind of memory problem that Xanax causes is what's called anterograde amnesia. And that is when you take it, you immediately start blacking out, okay, if you take enough. It's not like you know what's happening and you forget it later. You forget it from the time that you take it. It also, you'll see on the videotape, causes visible intoxication. You'll see as Brandon walks through the Walmart that he's just stumbling around, clearly very intoxicated. What we'd like for you to do, and I know that you will certainly do, is listen very carefully to all the evidence, particularly including Brandon's statement, because Brandon explains what's going on in his mind. He explains what he sees. You'll see that even under the influence of Xanax, he's very respectful and appropriate with the police officers. So he's not cursing them or spitting at them or bad-mouthing them. He's very respectful and appropriate. You'll hear his speech is very slurred. It's obvious he's highly impaired as a result of the Xanax. But even despite that, and even despite this flattening effect of the Xanax, you'll hear Brandon's emotional reaction to what happened bleed through the video at times. Specifically when he's asked, well, how do you feel? And he starts thinking about what he's seen and thinking about what he's done. You'll see his true emotions come through several times. So it's important to pay real close to that statement, close attention to that statement. We certainly know that everyone will pay very close attention to all the evidence and understand that what we're asking you to do is closely consider all the evidence and consider whether the evidence proves each and every one of the elements of the charge. We hope that at the end of the evidence, what you'll be able to do is agree with us that this case establishes something other than a capital murder charge. We're not saying that you should walk Brandon Daniel out the door. We're not saying he's not guilty of anything. We're saying he's not guilty of the capital murder charge, and we hope that after you hear the evidence, you'll agree with this. Thank you very much.
Jake, would you please have your witnesses present come into the court, please?
Court reporter, give us your name, please. Okay, right over here, and you'll stand and face the court.
Raise your right hand. Each of you do solemnly swear the testimony which you will now give to me before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
The rule is being imposed, which means from this point forward, you are not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone other than the attorneys involved in the case. If you're waiting out in court among yourselves, you're not allowed to discuss it among yourselves as well. And this rule will last until the case is completed. Do each of you understand that? Who's going to be first?
Sean McCarthy.
Mr. McCarthy, you have a seat right here available.
You guys are going to sit right now.
You may proceed.
Sir, would you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
McCarthy, McCarthy.
And go ahead and spell your first name too, just in case.
Sean, Sean.
Mr. McCarthy, you can pull that microphone closer to you so you don't have to keep getting your name. And Mr. McCarthy, how are you employed?
Currently,
Yes, sir.
I'm a plumber.
And I want to call your attention back to 2012. In April of 2012, how were you employed at that time?
I was working for Walmart at the time, an overnight produce stocker.
What does that involve doing?
Just cleaning and restocking all the produce, just making sure everything's cleaned up, ready for the morning.
And back in April of 2012, how long had you been working at Walmart?
I'd say about 8 months was the time when the incident happened. That was how long I've been working there for.
Mr. McCarthy, did you work at a particular Walmart?
Yeah, the one off Palmer 35.
That's in North Austin?
North
Is that
Austin.
correct? Did you have certain hours that you were working back in April of 2012?
Yes, sir. It was 10 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning.
So I want to call your attention specifically to April 6, 2012, the day of which you referred to as the incident. Were you working those 10 o'clock in the afternoon and 10 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning hours on that day?
Yes, sir.
And what we're talking about is Thursday going into Friday?
Yes, sir. Thursday going to Friday. Yes, sir.
So you came to work at 10 o'clock on the Thursday, which is the 5th, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you were still working after midnight going to the 6th that Friday.
Yes, sir.
At the point leading up to the shooting of the officer, what were you doing immediately before coming in contact with the suspect?
I was actually restocking waters. It's in like the main aisle, and I was just, filling it back up. It's called zoning it, and just putting it to that, and then that's when the perpetrator came inside.
Well, tell me what area of the store were you doing this restocking of water?
It's right up in the front, just past the cash register before you get into like the clothes department and stuff.
The large entrance as you're coming into the Walmart?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
What kind of water section was it? Was it on the shelves or pallets? Or?
Yeah, it was just on a pallet in the middle of the aisle, and it just gets filled up to about, shoulder height.
And describe what your initial contact was with the suspect.
Well, when I was stocking the waters, I was just, doing my job, and he was actually bagging his own stuff in bags, and he came up to me and just asked if I could hold his bags for him while I go out and get something. And I said yes, so I put the bags, and I was finished with my job, so I go ahead and let the bags onto the pallet, and then we took the pallet back. And when I came back, they were gone. So that was
You said that he was bagging some items himself?
Yes, sir.
He wasn't checking out bagging?
No, they were actually the produce bags that we used to put the produce. He was putting other items in it and stuff.
The area where you were working in the water section, is that close to the produce section?
Yeah. It was just like, it's called like a feature, and so it was just up by the produce, but it was in my section, so they told me to go ahead and zone it up.
So he came from the produce section to where you were stocking the water?
Yes, sir.
And describe what his demeanor was as he approached you and as you spoke with him. How was he acting? What was he doing?
I mean, he was really nice, you know. He just said, you know, can you do this for me? And I, you know, gladly accepted it. And I mean, I didn't see, you know, no aggression or anything. He did look a few, you know, like he had a rough night or something. And so, I mean, I just figured that into my own fact and helped him out, you know, by holding the bags for him. And I had to continue my job, so there I left the bags there. Went and took my pallet back. When I came back, they were gone. So,
in your interaction with him, did you in any way feel threatened by anything that he was doing?
no, not at all. No, sir.
Did not see him as being any kind of threat to you?
No, sir, not at all.
So does he hand you these items?
Yeah, it was just like 2 produce bags, and there were, I think they had like some meat in it and some peanuts and just, you know, stuff other than produce.
So once he hands these 2 bags to you, what do you do with the bags?
I was home then for a minute, but I had to finish my job, so I went ahead and set them onto the top of the waters, and I just, you know, continue that, and you take the pallet back after it's empty, take it back to the back where the back room is, and I did that, and then when I came back, the bags were gone, and I didn't see the man anywhere.
Now after he gives you the 2 produce bags, the produce bags filled with whatever items they were filled with, and you put them on the, or you hold them.
Yes, sir.
Where does he go?
He went back outside to go to his car or vehicle.
Back out of the main entrance there?
Yes, sir.
At that time, about what time of night was this?
Oh, I want to say about midnight to 1 o'clock. About usually when I go to my lunchtime. So, because when I came back, that's when it was time for lunch. And so it's about midnight, 1 o'clock.
So then he goes outside, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, is there just one entrance and exit at that time of night?
Yeah, that one entrance is the only entrance open at that time. During that time.
So after he goes outside, you place the items on the pallet, and then you go to continue your work away from that area. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
About how long is it before you come back to that area?
It's probably only about, I'd say 10 minutes, because once I dropped the pallet off, I came back to just, you know, make sure he got his bags, and he wasn't there, so that's when I went to go clock out for lunch, and then I went outside.
Okay, when you come back, you see the items are gone, correct? What do you do next?
I just assumed he could grab them, so I went and clocked out for lunch.
And what happens after you clock out for lunch?
We were out there. It's a kind of a smoking break area, and it's, you know, benches. It's on the side of the building, just past that entrance. And I went out that entrance, sat over there with the guys, you know, hanging out. And then shortly after, I heard the gunshot attack.
You mentioned this, so after you go outside, you go to this smoking area, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
If you're looking at the Walmart, if you're in the parking lot, looking at the entrance door, is that area to the right or to the left?
If you're looking at the entrance door, the area is to the right.
To the right. Over on the corner of the store?
Yes, sir.
Is there a little pavement area there?
Yeah, it's a pavement area, and there's a few benches and some, you know, bud stands and all that type of stuff.
Before you went outside, do you recall having a conversation with one of your managers, a person by the name of Archie Jordy?
Yes, sir.
And this is before you took your lunch break, correct?
Yeah, this was he was while I was packing the waters, he was there with me, and he was actually watching the person also, and he was just saying that, you know, just keep an eye on him, make sure, you know, nothing happens. And he didn't say, you know, put myself in danger or anything. He didn't think it was going to be danger either. And so I just went on with my business, and, you know, I continued my work. And once I came back, him, Archie, and the other guy was gone. So I just went off to lunch.
Do you actually recall that it was close to 2 o'clock when you took your lunch?
Yeah, I would say it was 2 o'clock.
And when you and Archie were watching him, do you know why? What had he done to draw Archie's attention?
Basically, the putting stuff in the bag was a big indicator. I remember him saying that that's a quick getaway, you know, by putting stuff in the bags and then just walking out with it. I do remember when I was walking out going to lunch, Archie did say he called the cops to, you know, pick up the man because he's either going to put himself in danger or other people. So at that time, that's when the cops were called, when I was walking out to lunch. third o'clock, yeah.
So you go outside and you're talking to the guys over on the right side there. You're looking at the store. Do y'all talk about this guy who you've seen in the store?
They've all seen him too. So they were just, kind of chuckling about how, intoxicated he looked and what kind of, things he was doing that was funny and stuff, and just making humor about it. But
it just seemed kind of funny. It didn't seem.
It didn't seem serious at all. I mean, we just figured, being at Walmart, you kind of see that stuff a lot. People like shoplift and stuff like that. So we just happened to, pass it by as it's nothing, and we did that all the same, and therefore something else happened. So.
And nothing unusual about calling the police for shoplifters or people like this?
No, nothing unusual. I mean, at first he didn't want to do it, but once he did, that's when it came to the fact that we needed police there.
So you're outside and you're talking to these guys and y'all kind of joking about this person's behavior. What happens next?
That's when we heard the gunshots. And we all didn't know it was gunshots at first. We thought it was either like a door off a truck slamming, just a really loud noise. And so once we try to investigate by looking through the little low clearance doors for the buggies, for the carts, we look through there and we see this lady running out saying, "They're shooting in there, they're shooting in there."
Describe how the lady looked. What was her expression, her demeanor?
She looked very frantic, very scared for her life. She was, I do remember she was like in a security officer outfit, so she must have been, an overnight shift too, and she was just coming there as a, customer. And as she was walking in, I guess that happened, and so she comes around and was running through the doors towards us, saying they're shooting in there.
So let me slow you down just a bit.
Yes, sir.
So this woman who apparently is fearing for her life is running toward you guys, right?
Yes, sir.
Now you talk about a cart door.
Yes, sir.
Is that the cart door on the end, on the side, where you push grocery carts in and out?
Yes, sir. Yes.
That's not the main entrance.
No, not the main entrance.
So she's coming toward the cart door, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you see this frightened woman coming toward the cart door, and she says, "They're shooting in there."
Yes, sir.
Now, you had talked about hearing one loud noise.
Yeah.
By this time, had you heard other noises?
Yeah, there was a few more shots, or it was 3 shots altogether. First shot came first, and then the second shots came right after. They were pow pow.
So the first shot, then some pause.
Some pause, and then a few more things.
Pow, pow.
Shots, pow pow. Yeah.
And then y'all go to the door, and then that's when this lady is coming frantically running out.
Yes, sir.
She has on a security guard uniform.
Yes, sir.
But it wasn't Walmart security.
It wasn't,
She
no.
was somewhere else and just shopping there.
Yes, sir.
What happens after you see this woman run out there?
We actually begin to investigate some more, so we run around to the front entrance, and we see Officer Padron laid out and Lincoln on top of him, of the shooter, and then we just sit there. We're all pretty much in shock, not knowing what to do. And I do remember Lincoln was yelling, "Go get something, for his neck," or because he's bleeding.
For Officer Padron's neck.
Officer Padron's neck, yes. And so I remember this one guy, Will, that was out there with me at the smoke break. He goes running to go find something, and Archie was standing on Brandon's hand with his foot, and Archie needed to call the ambulance.
Hold on just a second.
Yes, sir.
Archie Jordan, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's the person you had spoke with earlier, and y'all were looking at
Yes,
the
sir.
suspect. He
Thank
was
God.
putting some items in bags and stuff.
Yes, sir.
This person who you had seen earlier, who had handed you those bags
Yes, sir.
before he went outside,
Yeah.
this person who you and Archie Jordan had watched, and then this person who is being held down by Lincoln Lemir.
Yes, sir.
Do you see that person in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
Would you point to where that person is seated and describe an article of clothing that he's wearing?
You see it right there on the left side. It was a black shirt,
A black shirt?
black long sleeve.
You're talking about the person on the end here, it looks like maybe a blue shirt
Yeah, dark blue. Yes, sir.
with a black suit.
Yes, sir.
You already made the record reflect that the witness.
Third person from my left.
Sorry, I'm giving you a wrong thing. Third person from your right.
Or yeah, from my left. Third
Person on the end.
Farthest from you. Yes, sir.
Now you already made the record reflect the witness has identified. So now what happens after you get out there? Officer Padron is there, he's bleeding. Will is going to get assistance. And Jordy says, what does Jordy have you do?
He says, hold his hand out with your foot. Do exactly what I'm doing. And he takes his foot off, and I just put my foot on his hand.
When you talk about his hand, you're talking about the defendant's
Hand, yes, sir.
Do you recall if there's anything in his hand that you're putting your foot on?
No, there wasn't nothing in his hand, but there was the gun next to it, maybe about a foot away.
Do you recall which hand you put your foot on?
Ooh, nah, I can't recall that.
And was there somebody else helping you and also holding him down and holding one of his hands down?
Yeah, Leakin was still on top of him, holding him down, and I'm just standing on his foot, making sure his foot doesn't reach or anything or nothing.
And what do you do
His
next?
hand, sorry.
And Mr. McCarthy, what do you do next?
I just continue to stand there on his hand, and the next thing we know, Will comes back to help Padron out, and he's, trying to keep him alive, I'd say. And next thing we know, the police comes in, the other officer comes in and tells us to get away while he's handcuffing Brandon.
Now, after all the other officers arrive and take the defendant into custody, what do you do next?
I then just go away. They tell us all to go to where the customer service desk is, and take out our license and have it ready to identify and everything. So we all do that. I'm doing the same thing with them.
They're getting you all out of that crime scene area?
Yes, sir.
Getting you to have some identification so they can speak to you later?
Yes, sir.
Did they later take you down to the police station and speak to you?
Yes, sir. And that's where I did my statement and just pretty much told them what I saw and what happened and stuff.
Now, let's go back to your initial contact with the defendant. Tell us a little bit more about how he was acting with you.
I mean, he was acting, pretty friendly. Just a regular guy would say to a guy, just, hey, can you hold these bags for me? And, I was, of course, being a good worker, I just said, yeah, no problem. So I held him there for a little bit, but I had to continue, doing my job. So.
Did he appear to be under the influence of some drugs or alcohol?
Yeah, he did. He did look pretty intoxicated. I do remember his eyes were pretty bloodshot. I mean, they were not, looking like regular eyes. And so I don't know what that takes to, get to that point. But I do know that he did look intoxicated to me. Yes, sir.
Yet he was able to communicate with you, ask you to do something for him?
Yeah, yeah.
He was able to leave the store and come back into the store?
Yes, sir.
Of his own free will.
Yeah.
And at some point he came back in, even though you didn't see him, but he came back in and got the items you had placed on the pallet.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And the pallet was right by where you had last seen him at.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So he was able to find those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he did some more walking around the store after he comes back in and you see him when you're with Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah. When Jordy was telling me about he was calling cops. As I'm walking, we're both walking together towards the end to the front entrance. We look down the alcohol aisle, and he's in the alcohol aisle, just looking around, just searching. That was the last place I saw him at that time.
Now, you were an associate there. How were you dressed that night?
I had my khakis and a blue shirt.
No particular kind of uniform, correct?
No, I mean it's their uniform, the tan khakis with a dark blue shirt.
Now, the officer, you said Officer Padron you observed him when he was on the floor, he was bleeding,
Yes,
is that
sir.
correct? Were you able to tell that he was a police officer?
Oh yeah, yes sir.
What let you know that was a police officer that you observed there who had been shot?
Well, the uniform he had on, all the gadgets, I saw that, very, large fit man, so I mean, I figured he was definitely some type of officer or something. And,
He had on a full Austin Police Department police uniform, correct?
yes, sir.
Your Honor, we'll pass the witness at this time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. McCarthy. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. My name is Brad Luthian. Okay, I'm one of the attorneys for Mr. Daniel here. Okay. And you'll have to excuse me. I'm a little hoarse, so hopefully, if you can't hear me, just let me know, and I'll repeat my question, okay?
All right.
All right, you a little nervous today?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, no need to be nervous.
All right.
All right. So you've done a really good job of it so far. Answering verbally, I think they told you to do that, so you've done a great job of that. And I'll try not to talk over you, okay?
All right.
All right. So let's go back to the beginning when you first saw Mr. Daniel, okay? When you first saw Brandon, you said you were stocking water?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And before you had contact with him, in other words, before he asked you to hold those bags, did you notice him at all before then?
I did notice him coming in. Yes, sir.
And when you saw him coming in, did you notice whether he was walking straight or was he stumbling or anything like that?
I mean, he wasn't like, it wasn't very like noticeable the way he was walking. I mean, he was walking pretty normal. I would say he was walking slower, you know, like he was checking stuff out, stuff like that, but nothing out of the ordinary, I would say.
Do you remember giving, I think you mentioned in response to Mr. Cobb's questions, that you had given a statement to the police officers that were investigating this case? Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Since the time, and I know it's been a couple of years now, but since April 6, 2012, have you had an opportunity to review that statement?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember whether you described him to anybody as him stumbling?
I probably mentioned that to Archie. We both mentioned it because he was watching him at the same
In
time.
your statement, might you have said that?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So, at least at the time, you remember him distinctly stumbling when he's walking in?
Yes, sir.
And that's how you first caught view of him, is that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it was the first time.
Seemed pretty out of it, it sounds like.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you stated that you clocked off and went to lunch about 2 o'clock in the morning.
About 2
right?
o'clock. Yes, sir.
So tough time to have lunch, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty late. I mean,
So you went out and you described that you'd gone to a smoking area that's on the other side of the Walmart, the side of where the entrance is open. Is that correct?
yes, sir.
All right. And now, if it's like most Walmarts, there's a rolling door that comes up where they slide all the carts in?
Yes,
is
sir.
that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the smoking area, that's to the right of that?
Yeah, that's to the
head on to the Walmart?
Yes, sir. On to the right. If you're looking at the lower door, then yeah, it's to the right where the smoking area is.
Okay. At that time of night, was the door open or closed, the rolling door?
It was open and carts were in it, and they were like halfway out, you know, to where the door couldn't even close it if they wanted to.
Okay. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, fair to say there's a bunch of carts there. It's probably not like a normal during the day when everybody's using the carts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And there's a smoking area to the right of there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you went out to lunch, do a lot of people take lunch at 2, or is that?
That's usually the time, yeah, because that shift that we work is from 10 to 7 in, so everybody's working the same shift, so we want to all take lunch at the same time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And so in that smoking area, is there benches out there or something like
Yes,
that?
sir. Yeah.
Were there any other people out there on the benches?
There was a few people out there, yeah. There was the people who, you know, ran in with me at the time.
So 3, 4 maybe, or maybe more than that?
I say, yeah, 3 or 4.
Okay. And out there in the smoking area, did you notice a vehicle parked out there, like a motorcycle or anything?
Yeah, there was a motorcycle, yeah.
Do you remember the color of that motorcycle?
Ooh, I don't want to lie to you, but
No, that's all right. I don't remember. But you remember the motorcycle?
yeah, I do. Yeah, it was right before you walk into the building. It was like parked right there. But I think there's a flagpole right there, like right by the flagpole.
Okay. And it's not necessarily a designated parking spot for motorcycles, is it?
Yeah, it's not designated, but they do that. I'm a motorcycle driver myself, so I mean I do that sometimes. So it's a good spot to do it, you know.
Yeah. So avoid taking up a whole parking space.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And so you were sitting out there, and you stated that there were some other employees there, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So with regard to the other employees, I guess y'all were smoking, taking a smoke break?
Yeah.
Okay. You stated that people were joking kind of about the individual that you'd seen?
Yes, sir. Just, just trying to cause humor about the subject,
Was it apparent to you when talking with everybody who was out there with you that everybody thought that he was pretty out of it or intoxicated?
Yeah, that was apparent. Yes, sir.
That seemed to be the subject of the conversation you guys were having?
Yes, sir.
So he was at least out of it enough that he drew several employees' attention?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you specifically about the first, what you later learned to be was a gunshot. You thought it was something else at the time when you first heard it?
Yes, sir.
What did you think it was again?
I thought it was when the trucks dock, they have a large, they call it a folding gate door, and it just drops down, and that way you can, ride your automatic pallet jack on there and stuff like that. And it's usually really loud when it comes in contact with the dock. And so I figured it was that, but it was much louder than that. So we all had the suspicion that it was something we needed to go investigate.
Okay. So when you heard that first shot, or what you later found out was a gunshot, the next two shots came, you said a brief pause, or was it a short pause, long pause?
It was a short pause. They were pretty much all kind of together, but I remember the first shot came, first, and then a brief pause, and then the second shots were pretty.
But it was pretty rapid?
Yeah, it was pretty rapid. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't like it was, bang, bang.
Yeah, no.
It was bang, bang, bang.
It was like bang, and then a pause for a while, and then bang, bang.
Okay. All right. So, when you go back in after you go to investigate, and you see Archie with his hand or his foot on Mr. Daniel's hand.
Yes, sir.
What was Mr. Daniel doing? Was he resisting? Was he motionless?
Yeah, he was pretty motionless.
Okay. Was he face down, or was he face up?
He was faced like kind of to the side, like they had him kind of torqued a certain way, but his side of his face was on the ground, and front side was on the ground too.
Okay. And you at some point took over and put your foot on Brandon's hand?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. And he resisted you at all in any way?
No, sir.
Okay. Did he say anything to you?
No, sir.
Okay. But did you immediately recognize him to be the person that you saw stumbling around? Who were your managers that night?
It was Lincoln, Archie. Those were the two I believe were there.
Okay, so Lincoln and Archie were there holding down Mr. Daniel, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what were they wearing? Were they wearing the blue, or were they wearing a shirt and tie, or what?
Yeah, they usually wear a shirt and tie. It's kind of blue. It's maybe like a lighter blue. They usually can either do white or blue. So it's like.
Okay, so they were wearing a dress shirt.
Yeah, dress shirt. Yes,
okay.
sir. Yeah.
And it was so it wasn't the standard Walmart.
Yeah, no polo shirt or nothing like that. Just standard.
So because they're managers, have to dress up a little.
Yes, sir.
All right. When they're managers like that, do they also, if you know, and if you don't know, that's fine. Do they also kind of, at that time of night, also share the function of the loss prevention kind of deal?
You mean act as trying to prevent thefts and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe they do. I'm not too sure on that, but I know they're usually part of it. I see them around them, when the cops are called and all that. So yeah.
Okay. Do you know if Walmart itself has any loss prevention officers that work normally?
Yeah, I do. I remember this one guy, bald-headed man. He's usually there. He's got a goatee. He's usually the guy I see around, doing his job, following people or whatever, seeing if they're stealing and stuff like that.
Did he work that night when you were there?
I don't believe he was there that night. Yes,
Does he wear a uniform or wear plain clothes?
He wears like black. He usually wears just all black. Like black pants and a black shirt, stuff like that. Usually black.
All right. We'll pass the witness, Sharon.
No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Young maid, be excused.
Yes, no, you're not.
Excuse. next witness.
Statement called Lincoln Lemir.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, will you state your name and spell it for the court reporter, please?
Lincoln Lemir, Lincoln, Lemir, LE, capital MERE.
And how are you employed?
Retail manager at Walmart,
And how long have you been at Walmart?
13 years.
And what are the basic duties of a retail manager at Walmart?
We oversee the basic operations of customer service, getting freight to the shelves, any associate issues, taking care of the customers.
And do you work at a particular Walmart?
Yes, sir. Walmart at Palmer Lane and 35.
And do you know the exact address?
12900 IH 35 North, southbound service road, Austin, Texas 78753.
Thank you. And in April of 2012, were you a retail manager at that time as well?
Yes.
And on April 6th, in the morning hours of April 6, 2012, were you on duty at that particular Walmart?
Yes.
And on that date, did you have an occasion to call the police?
Yes.
Can you describe for me what drew your attention and what caused you to call the police in the first place?
We had a customer that appeared to be intoxicated, was in the building, went outside, left the building. When he came back into the building, I was up at the front at that time, observed the intoxication level and called 311 to protect him and anybody else on the roads, to keep him from driving.
And you stated you called 311. Is that a common occurrence as a night manager?
If there's no theft involved, just a safety issue, yes.
And on this particular occasion, when you called 311, what happened to your call?
It was, after talking to them, it was moved over to a 911 call.
So you didn't recall, they just transferred you?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
And sir, I'm showing you a disc that's labeled States Exhibit 1. Have you had an opportunity to review that disc and the contents of that disc?
Yes.
And does that disc correctly and accurately reflect the phone call you made to 311 in the morning hours of April 6, 2012?
Yes.
And other than your voice, are the only other voices the 911 or 311 operators?
On occasion, you'll hear me talking over our radio with Archie.
But that's not on the phone. He's actually on a radio that you
Right.
had
It's
in
just
your
me communicating with our store radios.
Your Honor, this time the state would move to admit States Exhibit 1.
No objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Asked to publish to the jury room.
Yeah.
around and was walking around parking. I just told him to try and meet here and get back on the street.
Just a moment.
I mean, other than me telling him he doesn't need to drive, I can't really hold him here and do anything wrong with him.
Alright, is the person like Hispanic or Asian?
It could be Asian.
Okay.
It's either Asian or Hispanic. It's quick for that.
And what color clothing does he have on?
She was in a black hoodie and black pants. I know it's black pants. Gray pants. Black pants. Black pants, gray hoodie. Black hat.
And I'm sorry, you said black hat? How old is he?
You know, we can do 25. There's the late 40s.
Any weapons seen or mentioned?
Yeah. He probably don't even know that I'm making this phone call. Trying to do things on good.
And where exactly is he located?
He was headed back into the store. I'm at the front of the store to make sure if he does try to make the purchases the way he can. But
Okay. So he's somewhere in the store at this time?
yeah.
And your name, sir? And you said your security there?
I'm not shitting anything.
Okay. Any phone number for you?
Area code 556-456-0.
And he was by himself. There was no one else there with him, right?
There must be somebody in the car. He can in the store by himself, yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, we've got an officer on the way out there to assist you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
And sir, after you called 311, what did you do next?
I went outside to the front of the store to wait for the officer to arrive.
Do you have any idea how long it was before an officer arrived?
It seemed maybe 4 or 5 minutes.
Between the time you made that call and the time the officer arrived, did you have any further contact with the individual you were calling about?
I did not. Archie was kind of behind him, walking throughout the store with him.
And is he giving you updates on the radio?
Yes, locations.
But other than what he told you, you didn't have any further contact with the individual until the officer got there?
No.
And when the officer arrived, what did you do?
I met him right at the front door, gave him a description of what was going on, called over the radio to talk to Archie to find out where they were at that time, and we entered the building.
How long do you think you spoke to him outside of the store?
Maybe 30 seconds. We were talking as we were walking in.
And what was the officer wearing?
Austin Police Department uniform.
Was he in full uniform?
Yes.
And when you entered the store with the officer, can you describe to us what happened?
As we were walking in, the suspect as well as Archie were coming up near the produce department, which is just before you get to the registers and or the front door.
Now, when you describe the front doors, is there only one set of doors open at that time of night?
Yes.
And do you know if it's the north doors or south doors?
North doors.
And describe for me what you see as you walk in the north doors on a typical night.
On a typical night at that hour, there may be a few customers at the registers checking out. There's our return baskets where we sort out the returns in front of the registers, in front of the other businesses that are closed on the overnight hours.
And what businesses are there?
There's a nail salon, and then next to them is a bank.
And is there a restaurant right in there as well?
McDonald's on the other side of the vestibule walkway area.
Still at the north door?
Yes, still at the north door.
So if you walk in, what would be on your right?
Immediately walking in would be the cart bay where the shopping carts come in from the outside. Once you actually enter through the vestibule, it's McDonald's there on the right.
And what is immediately on your left as you walk into those doors?
The registers.
And when you entered the store with the officer, how far was the gentleman and Archie from those front doors?
Probably 100 yards.
Could you see him?
Yes, once we got to McDonald's, we could see them at the front of produce.
Did you make any indication that that's him or anything like that?
I pointed out to the officer that that was the man we were talking about.
And what happened?
We continued forward. The officer asked him to stop. He wanted to ask him a few questions. At that time, the suspect ducked his arm and started running towards the front door.
And when you say he ducked his arm, can you describe what that means?
Kind of lowered his shoulder as the officer reached out to grab his arm and tell him that he wanted to talk to him. He kind of ducked his arm and ran like to go through the grab.
Did the officer make contact with him?
He grabbed his arm and said, "APD, I need to talk to you. Stop, I need to talk to you."
And the first time he said it, was it just, "I need to speak with you"?
No, he did say, and the officer followed.
How close behind was the officer?
A step or two.
And what happened?
As they approached the McDonald's, where it goes from our concrete to the tile, the officer tackled him from behind, taking them both down to the ground.
You said tackled him from behind, tackling the guy who'd been in the
suspect, yes.
Okay. And when they were on the ground, can you describe how they were positioned and what happened?
As they were going down to the ground, I remember hearing, as the tackle was made, I remember hearing something, not knowing exactly what it was, and then they hit the ground, and as they were rolling over, I did hear what was a gunshot.
So you heard something before the gunshot?
Correct. It was a pop, but I didn't know if it was from the items that were in the bag or what the pop was actually being derived from.
And how soon from the time they landed on the ground to the first pop you heard?
Instantly.
And what about the second?
From what I remember, the first pop was fairly quick, and then as soon as as they were falling to the ground, I heard the second pop.
And what happened after that?
Once they hit the ground, I was right behind them and realized that it was a gun, that the pop that we heard, and I immediately jumped onto the suspect.
And you said you realized it was a gun.
I had no idea it was a gun in the beginning.
What made you realize it was in fact a gun?
Seeing the officer bleeding out.
Did you see the gun at that time?
I did not see the gun until as I jumped on him, and then I did realize that it was a gun as he raised his arm and fired a third shot.
And when he fired that third shot, you were on top of him?
Yes, and the third shot went right by my right ear.
And were there other people involved at that point?
At that, yes, Archie was. As I came behind the suspect and the officer, Archie had doubled around to get in front of the. He went through the registers as he was coming into the building, just to help the officer get to what he needed to do.
And that third shot, do you think it was intended for you?
I feel that it was, yes.
And did you actually see the muzzle flash of the gun when it went off?
I don't remember if I did or not.
And do you know what hand the suspect had the gun in?
I believe it was his right, but I'm not positive.
And so, if you're on top of him, how is he positioned to bring his right hand around?
He was laying on his what seemed to be his right side, and then just lifted his arm up and fired back.
And what happened after that?
Right after that, I was able to push his arm back to the ground, and Archie walked up, as well as I believe Sean is his name, and they got the gun out of his hand. stomped on his hand to release it and then kicked it away.
And how long did you hold him there?
I was there for a few minutes, and then I had to get up and go to somebody had called 911 from the service desk, so I had to go take that call.
And I've previously shown you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 2.
Yes.
And without going into detail as to other persons on that phone call, did you review the time you were on that particular call?
Yes.
And does it fairly and accurately depict your portion of the 911 call that was made from the service desk?
Yes.
And when you got up and left and went to the service desk, was there already a police response?
I don't remember exactly if backup had arrived yet or not.
And did someone else take over restraining the suspect?
Archie was still right there. I don't remember who exactly was right around there. I believe backup had arrived, and then I went to the service desk, and then they called me immediately back on my cell phone so I could get back to the scene.
And I keep referring to the suspect, but is the individual who you saw in the store and later restrained in the courtroom today?
Yes.
And can you identify where he's sitting and what he's wearing?
In a black suit over here to my left.
And when you restrained him, did you have any conversation with him? Did he say anything to you?
After the officer had been shot, he kind of laid his head down and what appeared to have passed out for a second, and then he raised his head, looked at the officer bleeding out, and kind of laughed, chuckled, and said, "I killed a cop."
At any time, did you see the officer remove his gun from his gun belt?
No.
And once the officers started arriving, what did you do other than go to the service desk for that 911 call?
They started moving everybody away from the scene towards the south end of the building.
Okay. And eventually you went to the police station and gave a statement?
Yes.
And did you see where the gun went when Archie, or I think you said Sean, whoever kicked it away, did you see where it went?
I believe it went up more towards the front of McDonald's, towards the front door.
Okay. Towards the exit?
Yes.
And did you notice anything else on the floor at that time while you were holding Mr. Daniel down?
Other than blood and some of our radios, our work radios that had kind of come off in the commotion.
And what do your work radios look like?
They're black Motorola handheld two-way radios.
What we used to call walkie-talkies, basically?
Yeah, walkie-talkies, yes.
I approach the witness. And sir, I'm showing you it's been marked as State's Exhibit 3. Have you had an opportunity to review that as well?
Yes.
And do the contents of State's Exhibit 3 fairly and accurately depict what's portrayed in the photograph?
Yes.
At this time, the state would move to admit the State's Exhibit 3 into evidence.
No objection.
Permission to publish to the jury, Your Honor.
You may.
Sir, if you could stand and approach the screen, and could you point out to us where this Walmart is that you were working on April 6, 2012?
I believe it's right here, just above the 275 number there.
Okay. And for those of us a little further back, can you kind of point out some of the main roads that...
Shelby.
Yes.
You may proceed.
Thank you. If you could point out kind of the major roads that caused the intersection around that, where you pointed the Walmart to be.
Farmer Lane, Lemir, and then 35.
Thank you. Sir, from the time that you met with the officer outside the store to the time when you heard the first pop, how much time do you think elapsed?
Maybe 3 or 4 minutes.
I'll pass witness this time.
Mr. Lemir, my name is Russ Hunt. Can I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Russ Hunt. I just have a few questions to ask you. On the night that you were working, that's April 6th of 2012, can you tell the jury what it was that you were wearing that night?
I had on gray slacks, white button-up shirt.
And a tie as well?
No.
Okay. And what about Archie Jordy? What was Archie wearing at the time?
I don't remember his exact outfit.
Okay. Do you know if anybody that was involved in this immediate incident was wearing what we would call a blue jumpsuit?
What blue I remember is the officer in his uniform. Which
Whether his uniform was black or blue,
Black or dark
that's the
blue.
one dark, full cover uniform you did.
Yes.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, the first notice you took of Mr. Daniel was when your assistant manager Archie, Jordy, and Sean, who testified earlier, told y'all there was an issue with the shopper. Is that correct?
As I was at 2 o'clock, most of our associates go to lunch, and I was usually the assistant managers on the grocery side of the building, and I'm on the other side of the building in the general merchandise. As I was going to check to see how grocery side was going, I see Sean and Archie standing at one of our features looking out the front door.
Okay. And it was your understanding that Mr. Daniel had left to go get his keys or something like that.
That's what he told my associate. Yes.
Okay. And because they thought he was highly intoxicated, they thought that was a pretty bad idea. Is that right?
Correct.
Because for community safety, you certainly don't want a person driving off if they're highly intoxicated, right?
Correct.
You wouldn't want not only something bad to happen, but you certainly wouldn't want yourself or Walmart to be blamed for it. Is that correct?
Correct.
In fact, did Sean tell you that the person had asked him to watch some items that he had been shopping and putting in some bags while he was shopping around at the store?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, so your first involvement, Mr. Daniel is outside looking for his keys or something along those lines?
Correct.
Okay. Now, were you, so did you stay over there on the grocery side to sort of keep an eye on the situation?
I was at that side of the store, yes, where
Okay.
where Daniel had asked him to watch their merchandise.
Okay. And that was, where is that with reference to the front of the store? Is that past the McDonald's or?
It's past the McDonald's.
Okay, so when you enter the store from the parking lot, you go in through the double doors, is that correct? The shopping carts are on your right.
Right.
Once you pass the shopping carts, then there's McDonald's on your right after that, is that correct?
Correct.
You can continue walking past the McDonald's and then you walk into the produce section, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so was it there in the produce section that Mr. Daniel had left his shopping items?
It was actually in what we call an action alley, in the main aisle going in between the grocery side and the apparel.
Okay, so it's past McDonald's, it's past the place where they have items that get changed out frequently, it's past the very early entrance into the produce section, and it's over between the produce section and that other aisle. Is that correct?
Right. It all lined up. That first feature is right at the beginning of the produce.
And it's not unusual for a person who's shopping around, who maybe forgets something in their vehicle or wants to leave the store, to leave their items someplace in the store and then come back later. That's not terribly unusual, is it? And it's not terribly unusual for a person to point out to one of these associates that they're going to leave their stuff there so it doesn't get put back on the shelves or something like that, correct?
Right.
And certainly you wouldn't want a person to get the wrong idea that you're shoplifting by taking the stuff out with you to your car without paying for it.
Correct.
And that's not unusual at all. Is that correct? Okay. But the unusual thing is that this particular individual seems to be highly intoxicated, right?
Correct.
Now at that time, you hadn't seen the guy staggering around or anything like that. Is that correct?
Not yet. No.
You just heard that from Archie and from Sean.
Yes.
Okay. So it was about 5 minutes later that Mr. Daniel came back into the store. Is that correct?
Sounds about 5 minutes.
There was some time
Correct.
elapsed. You're not sure. You didn't have your clock on.
Correct.
Did you notice at that time that he was staggering as he was walking into the store?
His straight walk was at an angle. Yes.
Describe what you mean by that straight walk.
He was trying to get back to the items that he set there, but instead of going straight, he was kind of veering off to his right.
Kind of veering off to the side. To his right, you said?
To his right.
And were his items off to the left, or were they off to the right?
They were on the left.
Okay. So he's veering to the right, but the place he needs to be going is off to the left.
Correct.
It's clear his rudder's not aiming straight to where it needs to be.
Correct.
Okay. And that's when you see that yourself, you decide, I need to call APD and get it.
Right.
Okay. Is it correct that you were on the phone with the dispatcher when you actually saw him go pick up the stuff there off on the left that he had left?
Once I called the dispatcher, Archie stayed with him, and I stayed at the front of the store.
Okay. So did you see him go pick his stuff up?
I saw him going in that direction.
Okay.
I never saw him pick him up.
All right, fair enough. And did you visit with some of the other employees, specifically Ryan Satterfield, about their observations of the fellow while he was outside?
While I was outside waiting for the police response, yes, I did see Ryan out there.
Okay. And you talked to him about how this guy was acting out there, is that correct?
Yes, he made a point to say that the guy had just walked into the flagpole.
Okay. Walked into a flagpole. And where's the flagpole located?
On the north end of the building.
Is that over by the smoking area where
Yes.
where the people take the smoke break or whatever?
Yes.
Do folks frequently park their motorcycles over in that general area?
At night, yes.
That's where the lunch break is taken. I presume it's a reasonably well-lit area. Is that correct?
It's fairly lit, yes.
Okay. So even this flagpole would have been well lit. Anybody should have noticed that the flagpole was
Correct.
Now, did you observe Mr. Daniel trying to put items into his backpack as he's walking over his shoulder?
No.
You didn't see that. Someone else may have talked to you about that, but you didn't personally observe that. Is
I
that
didn't
correct?
observe it. Archie and I were talking on the walkie-talkies.
And did you say that Archie was actually had his eyes on the fellow and was following him around the store?
Yes.
Throughout this entire incident, he's following him around?
Well, after he came back into the building and I was on the phone, yes, he was following me.
Is Archie a manager, or is he in loss prevention, or do managers have loss prevention duties?
He's an assistant manager, and on the overnight hours, yes, we kind of do the watch for the theft.
Sure. And it's probably not terribly unusual for people to come in intoxicated and try to steal stuff. Is that correct?
It's hard to say.
Okay, right. Certainly this wouldn't be the first time that you were involved in a person who was intoxicated and stealing stuff from the store. Is that correct?
We encounter intoxicated people often after the bars close, but it's not, I've never had a theft issue with it as well.
Fair enough. And you your general assignment was more on the general merchandise area and not in the produce section. Is that correct?
Being that I'm the shift manager, I have the total store, but I put more emphasis onto the general merchandise side,
Okay. And was Archie primarily assigned to the produce side?
the grocery side, yes.
Okay. All right. All right, when you made the 311 call to Austin Police Department, I want to make sure I understand what you said. I think how you described the person is, we've got a guy here who's drunker than Cooter Brown. Is that what you said?
Yes.
And so in your mind, what are you thinking when you said drunker than Cooter Brown?
Highly intoxicated, shouldn't be on the road.
Okay. Now, we said drunker than Cooter Brown. I didn't hear you say that you smelled the odor of alcohol. You didn't smell the odor of alcoholic beverage on did you?
No.
All right. But in your observation, this guy is certainly impaired and intoxicated.
He was impaired in some way, yes.
And you said something about the car keys on the 311 call. Do you recall what it was that you said?
I recall Sean telling me that the suspect told him he had to go out and get his keys.
Okay. So you were trying to express to the police on 311 or 911 that you got a drunk guy who's going for his keys. So that might be a danger, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit. So Officer Patron comes in, and the two of y'all go where exactly?
We walk in the front door. As we're walking into the door, I ask Archie where they are at that time, and they were in the frozen food aisles.
So Archie is still on the radio,
Correct.
and he's over in the frozen food aisle, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so have you and Padron veered to the left, veered to the right, or veered to the left?
Just stay walking straight into the store.
Have you passed the McDonald's area?
Yes.
Okay. You're past the McDonald's area. Archie says, we're over in the frozen food aisle. Now, the frozen food aisle is on the far right-hand side of the store. Is that correct?
Right, yes.
Okay. So Archie's following the person their way over in frozen food. They're not right next to the exit aisle. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, I take it back. Is frozen food on the wall over here, or there's some frozen food display cases that run sort of parallel to the front of the store?
Right.
Okay.
Right behind produce.
So and then over here on the far right-hand side of the store is the meat and cheese and stuff like that. Okay. So they would have been in this frozen food section that is parallel to the front of the store. But at that time, were you able to see either of the two of them?
I did not see them until they came into that action alley.
Okay. Can you see into the frozen food section from the produce section?
No.
Okay, because those frozen cases are parallel to the front.
Correct.
So they would have been in an alley that you would not be able to see. Okay. But there are cameras all over Walmart, is that correct?
Correct.
So Walmart puts a lot of emphasis on loss prevention and records everything, right?
Correct.
Okay. Plus you had eyes on the fellow with Archie following, is that correct? Okay. All right. So so you and Padron are in this action alley? Is that what you call it, action alley?
We actually got to produce.
Okay. So where in produce did the two of y'all go?
Produce, we stopped right before produce.
Okay. So right before the exit to the store, right at the entrance of the produce section.
Correct.
Okay. And it's just the two of you?
At that time, yes.
So does anybody else that is a store employee walk up at that time?
Other than Archie and the suspect, I don't recall.
So do Archie and the suspect then come out of the frozen food section?
Yes.
Okay. And walk toward the two of y'all. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did you notice whether Mr. Daniel immediately noticed y'all or perhaps didn't notice you? Were you able to tell?
I believe he noticed us.
Okay. And at that time, were you able to see Archie?
He was directly behind me.
Just directly behind him. And so you, Archie, and Officer Padron, and Mr. Daniel, all four of y'all are in that general area. Is that correct? All right. And that's when Mr. Padron tells the person he needs to talk to him, and the person takes off running. Is that correct?
He says, Austin Police Department, I need to talk to you. At that time, he ducks his arm and runs. Yes.
Okay. And he runs toward the exit of the store. Is that correct?
Correct.
So he would have run past these items, past the McDonald's, and toward the double door. That's the general direction he was running.
Where he was at in the store when it was approached was that in between where we have right inside the door, in between produce and the McDonald's, is a deli island. That's approximately where Padron approached him.
Okay. And you had mentioned that Padron tackled him. I think what you said was where the flooring changes to tile. Is that correct?
Right, yes.
Describe that for us, please.
From the store, concrete goes up to approximately McDonald's. Where McDonald's starts is where the tile, where McDonald's ends as you're walking in, and it starts going out, it's tile, and that's where they met.
All right. So,
Chase ended.
is it fair to say that Mr. Daniel takes several steps, Padron is hot on his heels, and then Padron tackles him? Is that correct?
Correct.
And the two of them go down to the ground?
Correct.
Do I remember you're saying earlier that the first sound you heard, which may have been a gunshot, was muffled sounding, didn't sound like a real clear gunshot, and it happened prior to their bodies hitting the ground?
It was as they hit the first, what I thought was the first pop was actually the gunshot. It was, you heard whether it was a bag of chips or something popping, it was muffled, yes. And then the second pop was directly after it.
Okay. And so where were the bodies positioned when you said the first pop, I'm sorry, was before or instantaneously with them hitting the ground?
I can't judge that because what I thought was the first pop was the fatal shot.
Okay. Well, so when was the first shot? What was happening when you heard the first shot?
From what I remember, it was the tackle was being made.
Okay. Had they hit the ground yet when you heard that first sound?
What was the first sound that I remember hearing was the fatal one. So it was, that was the, I thought there was only two shots. The fatal shot and the one that went by my head.
Okay, but did you say that there was a third sound which you don't think was a gunshot?
I didn't, as they were going down, I heard this, like people, our other associates kind of scream type of thing, and nobody really knew what it was, and then my first pop was the fatal shot.
Okay, fair enough. So the chase begins. Mr. Daniel's taking these steps. What do you hear? I mean, who is making noises at that time?
Really, nobody.
Okay. Is someone telling the fellow to stop? Is the police officer telling him stop APD? Are y'all telling him stop loss prevention? Recall.
From what I recall, when he started running, it was after Officer Padron had already said, Austin Police Department, stop, and he talked to you.
Right. But during the few steps that he took before he got tackled, do you recall hearing him?
I don't recall hearing any voices.
Then Padron tackles him, the gunshots occur, and then you are right there because you almost immediately tackle him yourself. Is that correct?
They were already on the ground when I got there.
Right.
I was behind, but not directly behind.
Okay, so rather than saying tackling him, you got on him to immobilize.
Correct.
And you were not immediately behind, but you were short behind. Is that correct? All right. And I believe that you indicated that he didn't fight against you. I mean, he didn't struggle against you. Is that correct?
No. He appeared to pass out.
And but then there was this. So he's facing downward, and you're on his back. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And you said that there was this other gunshot that went the bullet went past your ear, correct? Okay. But Mr. Daniel was not facing toward you at that time.
No, he was on his, I believe it was his right side.
Okay. On his right side with his right arm, and you're on his back. Is that correct?
From what I remember, yes.
Okay, fair enough. So did you say that you're on top of him and he almost seems to pass out?
As I'm holding him to the ground, restraining him to the ground, yes, he appears to pass out and lays his head on the floor.
Okay. So it's not just that he stops, he doesn't resist, it's that he literally goes limp as though he's passed out. Is that correct?
For a moment, yes.
Okay. When you say for a moment, is it a second? Is it 10 seconds? How long is it?
Probably 10 seconds.
Okay. And then you said that he woke up and turned and looked at the officer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach the witness? You recall giving the written statement to the police officer shortly after the incident, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to refer you to last page of that written statement. If you could just read this paragraph to yourself. And I've highlighted that there. Okay. So in this statement, what you said at the time was that the individual woke up, looked around, and laughed, and then appeared to pass back out. That's what you told in your written statement at the time. Is that correct? And is it safe to say in this written statement, which was given right after the incident, you didn't say that he said something like, "I killed a cop"? You didn't put that in your statement, did you?
I said that in my statement.
You said that in your statement?
I remember saying that to the detective that took my statement. Yes.
But the detective apparently just didn't put it in this typed up portion of your statement.
I mean, it's not in that part right there. No.
Okay, but you remember having told him that, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Now you did go back over this and sign it at the bottom after the officer typed it up for you, didn't you?
Correct.
Okay. Just a few more questions, sir. So when Padron starts chasing after the fellow, do you also immediately start running after the fellow?
I didn't run. I didn't turn and run. I approached behind.
Okay.
Brisk
You
walk.
didn't just stand stock still. You moved in that direction.
Correct.
Okay. In terms of the dimensions of this area right in front of the McDonald's where the tile is, do you know how far into the tile the incident occurred? How many feet it was?
I don't remember exactly.
All right, you don't know off the top of your head what the dimensions are in that area. All right, very good. Your Honor, we'll pass the witness this time.
I have no further questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Madison. Break.
How long, Your Honor?
10 minutes.
All rise. We'll begin a short recess. You may be seated.